Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. I'm Ana Duarte McCarthy, Director of Development, Corporate Partners at Forté, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to today's webinar, Leading Through Uncertainty, addressing the concerns you may all be experiencing on how to lead others as well and provide comfort, guidance, support, and assurance to your teams and organizations during this uncertain and challenging time. This session is being offered as part of Forté's Don't Quarantine Your Career series, which was launched in mid-April to provide weekly programming over the next few weeks as we all navigate through these times. I'm now very pleased to introduce our moderator and speaker, Jodi Glickman. Jodi is passionate about developing leaders, both seasoned executives and next generation talent. She started off as an investment banking analyst and moved through various career steps and is now the CEO and founder of Great on the Job, which has reached hundreds of thousands of the brightest minds across corporate America and academia, including many of the organizations and schools in Forté's network. Among her accomplishments, Jodi is the author of the critically acclaimed book, Great on the Job, What to Say, How to Say It, The Secrets of Getting Ahead, and she is a writer for the Harvard Business Review. She's currently working from home in Boulder, Colorado with her husband and 3 children. I have a feeling we could have a webinar on how all of that is going, in particular homeschooling. Jodi's been a longtime friend to Forté. She's fabulous. She's a featured speaker at many of our programs and events. It is my pleasure to welcome today's presenter, Jodi Glickman. Over to you, Jodi.
Thank you, Anna. That was a lovely and very generous introduction. I appreciate it. So you put generosity into action, which we're going to speak about today. So hi, everyone. It is nice to meet you and see you and be online with you. Thank you so much to the Forté Foundation for hosting me today. As Anna mentioned, we are longtime partners with the Forté Foundation. I love working with Forté. And I often say that had Forté been around when I was in business school, my career might have taken a very different turn. But at any rate, today we are here to talk about leading through uncertainty. And my remarks are going to be directed at leaders of teams, leaders of organizations, as well as leading self, of course. But really, we are talking about how can you bring your teams through an incredibly uncertain and anxious time. And so in this crazy world that we're living in today, I am happy to be with you. Of course, in better circumstances, we wouldn't all be spending our lives online and in webinars, but such is life. And as Anna mentioned, yes, I am working from home. Just like all of you, and there's a good chance that a little person wanders into my office, even though my husband's been joking about getting that sort of red light on air so that everyone knows, because I am spending a lot of time on Zoom in front of big audiences talking about leadership topics that are so important today. Why are we here? The Forté Foundation has been just amazing in their response to COVID-19. I love the Don't Quarantine Your Career series. I called up Forté after I listened to the first one and said, I'm in, what can I do? So really, I'm here today to inspire you with the gift of Great on the Job. And I will be sharing with you just what that is in a few minutes. But it is the framework that sort of everything that we do at Great on the Job is based on. Hopefully, I'm going to empower you with tools and strategies that you can use to develop your leadership capabilities immediately. And it gives us a chance to provide connection, right? We are all isolated in our homes. Coming together, even in webinar format, I think is just good for the soul right now. A little bit about me. Anna gave, again, a lovely introduction. So I actually am the CEO and founder of Great on the Job. We are a leadership development and communication training firm. I have graced the TEDx stage in Chicago. It was an amazing experience. And I talked about why you should stop looking for work you love, which is a little bit counterintuitive, so I encourage you to go check that out if you're interested. In a former life, however, I was a Peace Corps volunteer turned investment banker. Not the likeliest of stories of folks who wind up on Wall Street, but I spent 2 years in southern Chile in a little town called Curarrehue, and from there I got myself hired as an associate at Goldman Sachs. I also spent time at the United States Environmental Protection Agency in Washington, D.C., and then talked my way into a summer internship at ExxonMobil. So again, kind of one of those head scratchers, like who goes from EPA to ExxonMobil? Not a lot of people. And what I would say is, last piece is I also got my MBA at the Johnson School at Cornell. I know Johnson is a big supporter of the Forté Foundation. So sending a big hello to any Johnson alum on the line today. But here's the deal. The overarching thread in my story is this. Technical skills, not really my thing. I managed to get hired at Goldman Sachs and spent 4 years, be promoted to VP and then leave. I managed to talk my way into a finance job at ExxonMobil, but it has never been my technical skills that have empowered me or given me any sort of success in my professional career. It has always been my soft skills, my interpersonal skills, or what a lot of people call essential skills, right? My ability to communicate with others, my ability to build relationships, my ability to communicate strategically, effectively, and persuasively every day in every situation. And that is what Great on the Job is all about. That is what we believe at the core of our being, is that technical skills are check the box skills. Soft skills are what produce leaders. Soft skills are game changing. And so as we think about leading through uncertainty right now, I would say most people, it's really interesting, but most people are not so focused on their, quote, subject matter expertise right now. What we need to drive us through a crisis, right, is a whole lot of personal judgment, empathy, communication, focus on relationships, focusing on transparency, on generosity. So a lot of things that we're going to talk about today. So I really do that soft skills are what build leaders. And so when I think about leadership, right, I subscribe to a theory that is, commonplace throughout the world, that there are different stages of leadership. There is leading self, there's leading others, and there's leading organizations. And so as I was putting the materials together for today and for this webinar specifically, I tend to spend most of my time on leading others. But what I realized is, in this world of uncertainty, we really need to start with leading self, because right now there is so much anxiety and uncertainty in our personal lives. So let's talk about leading self first, and then let's go into leading others. So I've been thinking a lot about how I'm feeling through coronavirus, and I use that as a metaphor for, imagine, where a lot of people are in our lives. I have an amazing amount of gratitude right now for all of the good things in my life. First and foremost, I do not have any loved ones who are sick or in the hospital due to COVID-19. So right off the bat, thank God, ahead of the curve, right? But I think a lot about, what am I grateful for right now? I'm grateful certainly to my family, the fact that we have a home that we can all be in, the fact that we are healthy. I'm grateful for the fact that I live in Colorado, so we have a lot of mountains and sunshine. If you're going to be quarantined anywhere, not a bad place to do it. And I'm extremely grateful for the frontline workers who are taking care of us every day. And not just those brave men and women in the hospitals and the ERs, the frontline healthcare workers, but also every single person who is at Trader Joe's and Whole Foods and Safeway and Kroger. Really and truly, like, I am incredibly grateful to everyone who is putting their life on the line. Now, the flip side of that is, there is a little bit of self-pity going on in my life. For probably the first time ever, I am an absolute eternal optimist. I am not someone who feels bad for myself through tons of personal and professional challenges, no less. That's not where I live. But right now, it's a time when I think we're all feeling bummed about what could have been, what was, the losses that we're mourning. And so in my case, while we have a very healthy business and Great on the Job is doing well, we've lost a ton of revenue, which of course we have, the whole world has. There have been some really important milestones in my personal life that sadly, that April, May and June are going to wipe out. And my husband was laid off from his job. And I just miss normal life, as I'm sure so many of you do. And so I think it's important to acknowledge that, right? Here's our revenue on a normalized basis for April and May before Corona. That's the new BC in our world. Right before Corona, we were at 100% revenue. We are down to 40 and 20% of those numbers for April and May. Now, again, gratitude that we've got a thriving business, a little bit of self-pity, revenue's way down. On a more personal note, my daughter was supposed to be bat mitzvahed in 2 weeks in Chicago. And that is just devastating on every level. And again, we're healthy and we're happy and I feel grateful. And yet I really am mourning the loss of this very big, important event in our lives, which hopefully we're postponing, but who knows? And then as my 13-year-old daughter says, this is really sort of the most important thing, right? In her world, Starbucks is gone, and that's really crushing. And so I just want us to acknowledge that it's okay if we're feeling sad, if we're feeling anxious, if we're feeling some level of self-pity, even if that's not normally where we live. It is okay. We should acknowledge that, respect it, and just say, okay, we have gratitude, but we're also allowed to have a little bit of wallowing in some sense of mourning and loss and self-pity. Now, another thing that I'm feeling that I'm sure every single one of you is going through is a huge sense of innovation, right? We are being asked to redefine and reimagine and rejigger so much right now, come up with new products and new offerings. So we've launched a free webinar series for all of our clients. We've taken all of our programming online, excuse me, right? Thinking about new blogs for HBR. We're relaunching Be Great on the Job Digital. We're launching micro learning series for our clients. We're doing a ton of new stuff. Okay. In fact, I wrote an article on March 18th. It's amazing to me. Gosh, I hadn't remembered when that was. March 18th about innovate or hibernate. And I went down and I said, you know what? I threw my marker in the sand and I'm going to innovate, right? I'm not going to just head to the couch and watch Netflix. Although let's be clear, I've done a lot of that too. So we're doing a lot of innovating. And then the flip side of innovating, if we think about the y-axis, is I'm exhausted. I'm guessing many of you are too. I can't tell you how many conversations I've had with colleagues and clients lately where people have said, Jodi, I've literally never worked harder in my life. And that is the case for me. As my team knows, it has been a lot of really late nights, a lot of weekend work. There is just so much going on because we are being asked to reimagine all of our product offerings, right? And we're being asked to redesign, rethink, recreate, revisit, reschedule, rejigger, redo, undo, unwind, pivot. It's exhausting. Every single thing that we thought was happening has sort of been thrown out the window. And you are probably in a very similar situation, right? We have to come up with new plans and then contingency plans and then contingency plans for our contingency plans. And we're thinking about ways of driving revenue and reducing costs and serving our clients and customers and doing it virtually. And it's exhausting. So let me ask you this question. What resonates with you most right now in terms of what you're feeling as you are leading through unbelievable uncertainty? Is it gratitude? Is it innovation? Is it maybe self-pity or exhaustion or something else? I'd love to hear from you. Tell me what you're feeling right now. And I wonder if we can vote for more than one. I don't know the answer to that. But let's launch this. Go ahead and vote for me, please. It is totally confidential.
I believe you only vote for one.
Okay.
And also, I'm going to vote as exhaustion, although I cannot vote as a panelist. Carry back.
So I can't see if, Hannah, are the votes coming in?
Yes.
Okay. Well, then I'm excited for the big reveal. I'll see it when you all do.
All right, I'm going to call it.
Oh, look at that. So that's pretty, I think it's pretty standard to where the world is right now. So 40% of us feeling a real sense of gratitude. I love seeing that. We are, I imagine, a largely professional group of women on this call who have flexibility in our lives, who are not, I'm sure some of us are frontline workers and some of us are in offices feeling like we have some sense of job security potentially. And then exhaustion. Yes, right. I mean, how about this? Can we use hand raise functions? Do we have hand raise too?
I believe so, but I'm not 100% sure.
If you see in your participant, if you have an ability to raise your hand right now. If you've got raise your hand. Other people in your house right now who are not normally there, whether you are homeschooling your children, whether you are taking care of parents, whether your dogs are on your lap and they're usually not. Raise your hand if you've got additional people, because this exhaustion is that we're going back and forth, right, between our work lives and our home lives, but there's no bifurcation right now. Right? We've all got, I can't see any, oh, maybe I can't see it, but I'm going to assume that's a lot of us. Okay, well, thank you for voting, everyone. I appreciate it. I like this one. Me, I'm the one who shouldn't be working at home. Totally. I'm with you, Natasha. That's a great point. Okay. So we're all dealing with a lot of different emotions that usually are not tied up with our work selves. My 7-year-old Emmett said to me, Mommy, why are you working so hard when there's no more work? Right? And it's a fair question. His world has been canceled. He's home from school, and yet I am on the computer all day long. So here's what I want to say on that. In terms of leading self, let's be kind to ourselves, okay? Let's honor that inner conflict and say, it's okay. I can be grateful and exhausted at the same time. I can be really trying to innovate and recognize that I need a break. Or I can feel a little bit sorry for myself and still be okay. And then let's leverage that vulnerability to lead others, because that recognition of where we are is helpful when we say to others, I'm here for you, or let's talk about what's going on, or I know we need to drive revenue, but I get that you're exhausted. So let's figure out how to make this work. So let's leverage that vulnerability. And with that in mind, let's shift now and let's talk about leading others, and specifically doing it while we are leading through uncertainty. So let me ask you this question. Raise your hand if you've ever worked for a boss you loved. Okay, we got that. I love it. Okay, thank you. Okay, my entire screen, literally, that's probably, close to half of us on this line. We have couple hundred of you on the line today. Okay, so most of us have worked for a boss we loved. How about the jerk? Who's worked for the jerk? Raise your hand. Who's worked for this guy? Present company excluded. So that's interesting. We're not getting any hands going up. Wow, maybe none of us have worked for the crappy jerk, which means this poll is going to be a little bit hard to answer or quick. But who do you do better work for? The boss that you love or the jerk? Go ahead and vote for me. Now I can see it. Okay, amazing. Thank you. I love, you guys are so amazing. Okay, Hannah, whenever you want to launch this poll, whenever you want to share.
All right, here we go.
70% of the vote, and you're amazing. 97% of us will do better work for the boss we love. Of course we will. There are a few of you who do better work for the jerk. Sometimes we are motivated more by fear than love. But the vast majority of us, and those numbers play out time and time again, right? The vast majority of us are going to do better work for the one that we love. And I throw around the word love a lot with Great on the Job. And when I say love at work, I'm talking about trust, respect, and admiration, okay? Trust, respect, and admiration. I would submit to you that your overarching goal at work while you are leading others is this. It is to make people love you. In a professional, platonic, work appropriate, no one getting sued kind of way. So let's just throw that out there. Your goal is to make people love you at work. Professionally, platonically, in a work appropriate way, to make them respect you, trust you, and admire you, so that they will go through the wall for you, so that they will have your back, so that they will work really hard for you. It is a virtuous cycle, right? If you have a boss you love, you will do anything and everything for them. That's just the way it goes. And if you have people on your team right now who you love, right, who make your life better or easier, you would do anything for them. And so that is our overarching goal. That is our true north, even in shitty times. And I think coronavirus warrants the use of a couple of bad words. That is your goal, to make people love you even in really tough times. As Jack Welch says, leaders emerge during trying times, right? It's not during the really easy times that we've got leaders who show their stuff. It's when, as my dad used to say, the feces hits the rooters. Okay. So gotta move my video. So how can you be that leader today? That's what we're going to dive into. That's what we're going to talk about. How can you be that leader today? Great on the Job is all about tactical, practical strategies to help you succeed. We really live in a lot of times the weeds, but there are 4 high-level themes that are the backdrop of everything we do, the backdrop of Great on the Job, and they are the gift of Great on the Job: generosity, initiative, forward momentum, and transparency. And I would argue that that's how you are a great leader every day, by embodying generosity, by taking initiative, by always focusing on forward momentum, and by being transparent always, even in tough times. So let's start with generosity, right? Not what you probably think of as top of mind when it comes to great leadership during a crisis. And I'm not talking about generosity in the form of Jack Dorsey donating $1 billion, which is amazing. God bless. Thank God we've got him and Bill Gates and so many others who are putting huge resources behind this effort. But I'm talking about generosity in terms of the way that we act with our teams, the way that we empower the people who work with us and for us, the way that we approach our clients, our colleagues, our board of directors. So generosity is this. Generosity is walking in every day and sharing your time, sharing information, sharing resources, sharing credit, right? Giving props to your team for a job well done. It's giving feedback even in difficult times. The act of giving feedback is one of generosity because you're taking time out of your busy career to invest in someone else's development. I've been getting the question a lot lately: Jodi, can I be giving feedback right now? I mean, people are working from home. They're so stressed out. But I'll tell you this: if you want or need to give someone feedback on your team and you don't do it, you're robbing them of a development opportunity, right? Because they can't get better. And God forbid they find themselves on a layoff or furlough list 6 months down the road because we didn't give them that feedback. Well, that's where generosity would have really come into play. And generosity is this: it's making your team's lives better or easier, period, full stop. Making your team's life better or easier. How can you walk in every day as a leader and think to yourself, how can I make my team's life better or easier? How can I make the client's life better or easier, right? How can I make my boss's life better or easier? That's what we need to think about. So being generous in your daily life, it looks like this: being there for your teams. Assuming best intentions always. I've read a lot about, people aren't clocking in from 9 to 5 anymore. Assume that your team is working really hard. Assume that they're working under the constraints, doing the best that they can. And assume when they do something that they did it for the right reasons. Give them the benefit of the doubt. Make people feel safe and make people feel valued. Practice empathy. So what's your team worried about right now? Personally or professionally? Are they worried about loved ones and family members who are living in hotspots? Are they worried that they're going to get laid off? Are they worried because their spouse is on furlough? What is really concerning to them? Find out, right? Ask them how they're doing. See how you can be helpful. How's your team handling the social isolation? Are you getting on Zoom calls? Are you doing those virtual happy hours that some of us are kind of sick of now, but that are really potentially helpful in certain ways? How are people handling it? Are you making sure you're doing more team meetings and you're just getting more of that opportunity to connect? And how are you keeping people's spirits up, right? Are you playing games with your team? Are you asking for, silly examples of what's the craziest thing that happened in someone's lives? I just got... Here's a way to keep your spirits up. Cards Against Humanity just published a free family edition. So that's what my family and I are going to do this weekend. What a fun thing. They made it family friendly. Practice empathy. Understand how your team's doing and how you can be helpful. Here's one of our clients who said to me on the phone last week. She said, Jodi, our CEO has done an amazing job taking care of our people. He got on Zoom in a t-shirt with a scruffy beard with his kids running around in the background. And he said, the most important thing is your family and your health. Don't worry about your job. It's not going anywhere. And she said that was just incredible for their whole team to see, for their CEO to get on, not in a suit and tie, not worrying about his kids in the background and just saying, hey, we're here. We're all human. We're in this together and you're okay. So think about what types of assurances you can give to your people. Think about how you can make makes people's lives on your team better or easier. Let me pause there for a moment because I see my chat box going off. I wonder if these are questions. Yes, we will make these slides available. Anyone have any questions or comments around generosity right now, leading people through generosity? Anyone want to weigh in on that? All right, well then I'm going to keep going because I do want to leave a couple of minutes for questions afterwards. Initiative, right? Gift. It's generosity, initiative, forward momentum, and transparency. You have taken a ton of initiative in your career, or you would not be here today. You would not be in the role that you're in. You would not be on this webinar today. You understand initiative intuitively. But now more than ever, it's like we got to keep raising our hands and saying, what can I do next? What should I be doing to help move the ball forward, to take my team through this? One of the things that's really neat to see is all of the celebrities and non-celebrities and businesses and politicians and NGOs who are stepping up to the plate to take on leadership roles during COVID. And here's one that I thought was really interesting. And again, there's millions of examples of people just stepping up to the plate. But this one's really interesting in that it is a woman named Rachel Carlson, who is an ed tech CEO. She runs an ed tech company called Gilded Education. And then Ken Chenault, who is one of her investors and partners, who's the former CEO of Amex, okay? Now they get Steph Curry on board, so he gets the headlines. Steph Curry, Rachel Carlson, Ken Chenault, 400 CEOs and investors signed an open letter pledging to take bold action in combating the coronavirus spread. Okay, so this is one of many initiatives. What's really amazing about this is look at the date that this was launched. This was March 15th. This was incredibly early in the coronavirus epic in the United States, right? The NBA canceled the season on March 12th. My kids were brought home from school March 13th. We didn't go back to school. New York City didn't shut down their public schools until after this, until March 16th. And stay-at-home orders were long after that. These guys were ahead of the curve. They recognized that there was a looming crisis on the horizon, and they said, we got to do something. So they created stopthespread.org. By the time this was published on March 18th, they had 1,500 leaders in the private sector saying, we commit to support the efforts of COVID-19 in any way, shape, or form. And if you read this now or you go check this website, there are literally thousands of initiatives of private companies, private citizens, foundations stepping up to the plate and doing what they can to help combat the virus. A different take. So here is Dr. Penny Wheeler, who was on 60 Minutes a couple of weeks ago. And she was talking about leading a healthcare company. And she said, my job is to try and learn from my frontline employees and then get things that are creating barriers to their care or their growth out of the way. That's how I approach leadership. So her view of initiative was not that I'm going to launch something new. She was saying, I got to figure out how to get out of their way. I got to do whatever I can to make it easy for them to get their job done. And so leadership is sometimes just that, saying, you don't need more of me, right? You don't need new policies, new procedures, new this, new that. You need me to figure out how can I make your life easier for you so you can get your job done. And then one more example of initiative. So here is my 11-year-old doing what she does best. My chest, my breath, right quick. He ain't never seen it in a dress like this. He ain't never even been impressed like this. Probably why I got him quiet on the set like this. Okay, so if you have teeny bopper girls, they live on TikTok, right? That's all they do. I mean, literally nonstop. And I tell myself, well, she's moving and dancing, so it's okay, and it's a private account. But here's what she's doing. Oops. She's sewing masks, right? She pulled out her sewing machine. She got online. She taught herself how to do it. We ordered a bunch of fabric, and she is making masks for the community that we are donating. So initiative can be 1,000,001 things, right? You know how to take initiative. You just raise your hand and you say, how can I how can I jump in? Maybe you launch a digital lunch and learn at your company on topics that people are interested in. Maybe you create a buddy system for employees so that everyone has someone checking in on them. Maybe you want to start mentoring a group of young people who wouldn't otherwise have access to your time. Hopefully you're taking even more of a personal interest in your team than ever before. I read one article that people are all giving tours of their home office, right? Which I think is really cute. Like, we're all stuck at home. Let's see where you're working. Let's see your house, right? It's fun. You get a sneak peek inside where someone is. Maybe it's time to experiment with new revenue streams or take a risk. Maybe not, right? Maybe we're just protecting our revenue. Maybe you take a pay cut voluntarily, you donate to a cause. There are 1,000,001 things that you can do, right, to take initiative. Maybe you need to just say to everyone, gang, you know what, my kids are coming in and out, so let's just say hello and meet them. Maybe it's a take your kids to work day on Zoom. There are 1,000,001 ways you can take initiative. Super closely tied to that is forward momentum, the idea that we always need to be moving the ball forward. So this is Nick Saban. He is the head coach of the Alabama football team, one of the more winning coaches in college football history. This is Nick Saban after he won a national championship recently. And then here's what he said in the press, which I found really interesting. He said, when we won the national championship, about 2 hours after, somebody said, "You don't seem very happy." And I said, "Well, I'm just worried about what the issues are going to be for next year." That really stopped me in my tracks when I saw that. I mean, he was happy for 2 hours and then he's moving on to the next thing saying, what are the issues going to be next year? That is the epitome of forward momentum, right? Now, in theory, we should celebrate our successes for more than 2 hours, but that's probably why he's such an amazing coach, because he's always thinking about what comes next. And so is your boss. And so should you be as a leader. You always need to think about moving the ball forward. Literally article upon article that COVID-19 is going to fuel the next wave of innovation. And we see it in every industry, right? We see it in my industry, in leadership and development. We are all going virtual. We are all taking our programs online. We are all thinking about micro-learning and about breakout rooms and using Zoom more effectively. You see it in healthcare. You see it in ed tech. You see it in clean energy, right? We all are disrupting and innovating. So focus on the future. I know it's hard, right? My team as well. We are in the day-to-day just sort of fighting fires, but you also have to take a step back and think about big picture strategy, not just day-to-day tactics. Ask this question: how do we not only survive, how do we thrive? This was said to me when my dad was dying of cancer. My best friend lost her mom when she was young. And when I was losing my dad, I said to her, I'm gonna get all emotional. I said to her, like, I don't know how I'm gonna be able to live without him. Like, I didn't understand. And she looked at me and she said, Jodi, not only will you survive, but you will thrive. And that blew my mind. I thought, oh my God, I never even thought about thriving. I was literally so focused on how am I going to survive when she said to me, you're going to thrive. And I was like, wow, holy shit. And she was right. She was totally right. I miss him every day of my life, but I have 3 amazing children who we didn't get to meet, who I have the most amazing life I could ever have. So we will not only get through this, gang, we will thrive. It hurts. It feels really crappy. We'll get through it. Is there anything we're doing better because of COVID-19? All of us who are saying, I've never worked harder in my life, right? We're going to be in a better shape in the next 3, 6, 9, 12 months to anticipate whatever curveball gets thrown at us next. So give your teams hope, right? Talk about what good is coming out of this. There is always silver lining. I kind of hate that as someone who has lost loved ones who are really close, and people say there's always good that comes of bad, and you think there is nothing good coming of this horrible situation, but there is always hope. So that's forward momentum. Always be thinking 2 steps ahead, right? Always focus on what comes next. And in this case, focus on the positive. And then the last one I'll leave you with is transparency. Now, we know it goes without saying you can never lie in business. But I would say today more than ever, transparency is the most important tool you have at your disposal to be a leader in times of uncertainty. Right now, you need to be transparent. You need to share with your teams exactly what's going on. You need to tell them what you know and what you don't know and how you're figuring it out. You don't and you can't. You don't want to, nor can you hide behind bad news. This is just not the time to do it. So Mark Cuban, right? Shark Tank, owner of the Dallas Mavericks, entrepreneur extraordinaire. Mark Cuban was caught on tape the day the NBA canceled the season, which I believe was March 12th. Maybe it was March 11th. It was very early on in the crisis. And if any of you follow sports, you saw Mark Cuban literally live as they told him the season had been canceled, and he was absolutely stunned. Absolutely stunned. You can Google it. It's really amazing. And then afterwards, he sat down to a press conference and he started getting all these questions. And people were saying, Mark, is this the right strategy? Should the NBA have canceled? Can you believe this happened? When are we going to play again? And here's what Mark Cuban said. He said, listen, guys, nobody at the Dallas Mavericks is an expert on infectious disease or their spread. This is not a situation where you fake it until you make it or you try to sound or act important. The NBA has hired people with expertise in those areas. We have to defer to them. And I thought, as I often have, I love you, Mark Cuban. I really do. Thank you for not trying to be an expert. Thank you for not trying to make shit up, right? Thank you for not saying, oh, I think we're going to be back playing, or you know what, this was a bad idea, a good idea. He said, I don't know anything about infectious diseases. You are not expected to be an expert on COVID-19. Let's just be clear, you are not. You are, however, expected to be 100% honest. And so communicate early and often with your teams. Show how you are being impacted personally and professionally. Don't hide behind the bad news or the pain. No one wants to hear everything's great, everything's great, everything's great, and then you're furloughed. Guys, we're doing our best we can to keep our workforce intact. We are applying for PPP. We will let you know when that happens. Revenue's down 87%. We need everyone to come together to figure out how we're going to keep everyone on board. Be transparent. This is not the time to sugarcoat things. Nobody knows everything. Here's the strategy you can use. And I know, Forté, we're coming up on the end. I will finish quickly. Here's what we do know. Here's what we don't know. Here's how we're moving forward. You owe it to your teams to be transparent. As a CEO of a luxury retail brand said a couple of weeks ago, I've been listening to these policy calls every Sunday. This is the hardest thing I've ever had to deal with in my career. It says it all. We are all dealing with an absolute unprecedented challenge that we've never had to deal with. So acknowledge it. Don't make it the elephant in the room. Let people know this is the hardest thing I've ever had to deal with. And then use gift to be the leader today that your teams want to see. Be generous with your time, your energy, your empathy. Take initiative, right? Figure out how you can bring people together. Focus on forward momentum. What are we going to do when we come out of this? How are we going to come out of this? And be transparent with your teams. Don't feel like you have to only give them rosy news. Pay it forward. Share the gift model with your teams. Talk about that we should all be embodying this with everyone we interact with. I will go ahead and open it up to questions if anyone wants to stay on for an extra 5 minutes, but I will say this as well. If you want more information on Great on the Job, text GotJHello to 33777. We've gone high tech. We've learned how to use text for Gen X like me. That's pretty old school, right? So we'd love to hear from you. If you want to reach out with questions, you are welcome to send me an email. And with that, I want to take it to our last Forté slide and say thank you so much for listening. We will be providing a recording of this, and you can get the slides if you go to fortefoundation.org. So with that, Anna, I'm right at 10:40. I know that was really quick, but anything you want me to cover? Do you want us to take questions? Or
yeah, you have, Hannah is probably going to direct you, but there was a great question here, which was from Amanda to all panelists. What's the best way to handle things if your leaders, the people above, are doing the leadership thing badly? So what's your advice on that?
You know, Amanda, it's a great question and it's a tricky one. It's not a one size fits all. I have a client who is a senior leader in her organization and reports to a very senior leader in her organization who is not leading with these. And she sort of reached out and said, Jodi, should I give her some feedback? And we decided that now wasn't the time to give feedback. In this situation, she works in healthcare, my client. So we're dealing with a lot of frontline employees, and we felt like there was so much stress and so much tension, and truthfully, her job could be at risk. Okay, so that's one scenario where it didn't feel like it was appropriate. Depending on your relationship with your leaders, you may be able to give them some feedback around, this is what I'm doing to take care of my team. This is what would feel good for those of us who are looking to you for leadership. But you have to have a really good relationship with your leaders to be able to share that feedback. The other thing I would say is embody it with those who you are leading and talk about it to your leaders so they see what you're doing, and maybe they get some type of contrast between, that's interesting the way Jodi's leading her team. We're not actually doing that at the division level. Maybe we should rethink that. So I would say it's tricky, right? Certainly you can trickle this down, right? Go have a meeting with your team, say, gang, just did a really cool webinar on gift, and let's all try and embody this in what we're doing every day. If you need to give it to someone above you, it has to come from a place of, I want to give you this feedback so that we are all better together. It's not coming from a place of wagging your finger. It's a place of, I'm invested in this team and I think this would help us work better together. So if you can deliver it that way, go for it. If not, at least exemplify it yourself personally with your teams.
Love that, Jodi. Here's a question on the forward momentum from Katherine Johnson. How do you balance forward momentum with the need to be sensitive to the fact that people on your team are dealing with exhaustion?
Yeah, I think you just have to be transparent. That's the key, right? You can say like, I'm really excited about this, or I think we need to spend some time and energy focused on this. I get that we're all, though, like pushed to the end of our ropes. So let's talk about how we can do it. Let's brainstorm. Or you know what? We need to set 2 hours aside per week right now to be thinking about that forward plan. Let's figure out where and when we can find that time. So the biggest mistake we make is when we don't acknowledge that exhaustion or acknowledge that we're all overworked, right? My team, we keep having these conversations like, what's important this week? What can we do? What can't we do? What do we need to take off the table? Or what do we need to push out? But it's really prioritizing, but being clear and saying, I know we're all overworked or overtapped. What can we maybe take off our plate so that we can be focused on forward momentum?
Yeah, that's great. You know, I think that's probably about time we have for questions. Again, your insights and perspectives are fabulous. And a big takeaway for all of us should be just every day, think about where our teams are, what's going on in their lives, and how can we make that, be generous, which is where you started this. I heard a terrible story yesterday where a manager said to the team working virtually, every day I want to see you in business attire. An example of not being generous. So again, such wonderful insights and perspectives. As you shared, this recording will be made available. And Jodi, you're so generous with Forté. So thank you for that. Thank you very much. Thanks to all who are listening, and join us again next week for more webinars to help you navigate during these uncertain times. Thank you, Jodi.
Thank you, guys. Love doing it. Talk to you soon.
Thank you. And that concludes today's meeting. Thank you.